A lot of games have come out over the years that try to scratch that itch. Thrilling, fast-paced gunplay that doesn't feel clunky or hold your hand. Overwatch was incredibly fun, especially when it first came out, and had pretty amazing graphics, but ultimately suffered from balancing issues and a fallout with its community. While Overwatch 2 is coming out soon, it might inevitably lose to Valorant that continues to occupy its main player base. Regardless, it's still smashed into the mainstream despite worries of a knockoff status to this game, TF2, which despite being released in 2007, continues to pull massive numbers on Steam and YouTube. Despite having a few main classes, every class is fun and has multiple playstyles through items. It also has a deep movement system that each class benefits from differently, all built around the absolutely sublime Source movement system. More on that later. The Scout is fast and has double jump, Demo has sticky bombs and shields that turn you into a Formula 1 car with a sword attached to the front, and Soldier has a built-in movement system that became its own game mode with over 1,000 maps. Ooh, there's a surf ramp. While #SaveTF2 certainly has something to do with the current hype, it's totally deserved, as the base game is fantastic and completely free. But there's one game you might immediately recognize but haven't seen in years. Combat Surf.
So in a sentence, I think Combat Surf is the best movement shooter that you've never heard of. I think that because it has a lot of depth in both movement and gunplay, and it has a great history.
Well, I think it combines two things that are so amazing in a video game. Both this fast-paced gliding experience, which is one, and second, the shooting aspect. It's not just aiming, it's also like figuring out how you're landing on ramps. So I think it just combined the best of both worlds, both movement and shooting.
Funk, a way better YouTuber than me, came up with 4 criteria for a good movement shooter. It has to resonate with players, it needs exposure to find its audience, it needs to offer something new or improves on the old, and it needs long-term support from its developers. I want to start with number 3. Combat Surf has the best of both parts of the name, movement and shooter. It has basically the same shooting mechanics of CSGO, the most popular first-person shooter in the world, and has one of the deepest movement systems ever created, Surf. Surf is not just that thing Leafy used to play. It has nearly 2 decades of development under its belt across CS 1.6, CS Source, and CSGO. And number 4 is an easy knockout too. Combat Surf has admins and developers with nearly a decade of experience crafting the best settings, plugins, and maps for its community. The only obstacle to this is Source 2, that might temporarily break some things, but admins are constantly updating their servers to optimize performance. Oh, I should probably mention this. In preparation for this video, I spoke with 4 veteran combat surfers and server owners, all 4 of whom you'll hear from in a future video. Darth Elmo, owner of Karma Combat Surf servers and the biggest combat surf YouTuber ever, and BReez, owner of Furious Surf servers and a key developer and event coordinator for Combat Surf as a whole. Lastly, Combat Surf resonates with its existing audience because it remained authentic and free for so long. Maps don't get nerfed to make them easy to surf, guns don't get randomly rebalanced, etc. There are also a ton of ways to play that you might have seen. B-Hop, like Combat Surf but bunny hops and ops only, and Kraber 9K, one of the newest game modes coming out of Titanfall 2. You might not have known that this gem of a game is actually based on the Source engine, the same ones as CSGO and TF2. And of course, Combat Surf also exists in TF2 if you really want to use Rocket Jump. So what about exposure? Well, unfortunately, the game has been on a downward trend in terms of player activity on some servers, which hurts discoverability in CSGO's amazing server browser.
Where Combat Surf is now is very different from where it used to be. And I think it also depends a lot on the state of the game as it is, like Counter-Strike, and how much Valve adds to the community server aspect. A lot of us older people who have been born into Counter-Strike, we are very aware of the community browser, all these community servers that you can play on. Maybe many new players now that are coming into CS, they aren't even aware of community servers, they might just play the matchmaking.
But the main problem is a split community.
For Combat Surf, there's not one server or one big hub where all the longest running or most competitive players gravitate to. Instead, you have different servers in different regions that have different playstyles and settings on their servers.
So, when Combat Surf does get exposure, it can be muted by each server in each region, each with their own settings, getting a couple of players here and there. On top of that, the players that do play are really talented, leading to a pretty steep learning curve.
There's an extremely large skill gap and pretty limited learning resources available. I did make a beginner tutorial about a year ago now that you can check out for basic binds and setup and connecting to servers, which has been a help. but there are limited resources on like really becoming better at the game. Like there's no advanced tutorial yet. It's something I might like to do in the future, but it's not there yet. So as of right now, if you're a brand new player, you've never played Combat Surf before, you hop in a server, you're gonna get destroyed. And more people leave immediately after their first game playing Combat Surf than stick around. It takes a lot of gusto to kind of sit there and get killed and spectate the people who are killing you.
So those that want to get good at Combat Surf have to stick it through. Grit your teeth, take a few L's, and play one of the best movement shooters ever created. So what do Combat Surf's elite hope happens to the game? Well, some regions are missing servers.
Once we are lacking servers in the different regions, it will also obviously cause a dip in publicity. If you go on the community browser and there's no Combat Surf servers in your region, then you're most likely not gonna play it because it's not there.
Regardless, Combat Surf has continued to survive in a competitive gaming landscape, and hopefully will for years to come. If you're interested in playing Combat Surf, here's Darth Elmo with the links, and in the description below.
If you're interested in trying out Combat Surf, check out r/Combat Surf on Reddit, and that subreddit has a link to two important things. One, Combat Surf community Discord, as well as the global Combat Surf server list. And if you're interested in source movement games similar to Combat Surf, you might also want to check out r/opbhop and r/Kraber9k. That's for CSGO Op Bhop and Titanfall 2 Kraber9k.